So I was at work the other day and one of my coworkers said that they just got a tank and he got the Fluval Spec 5-gallon. I talked him into letting me take it home and aquascape it for him, so we're gonna set that up today. It's coming right up, right after this. Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and one nice thing about setting up the same tank a couple of different times is you can kind of dispense with formalities and get right to work, and I think that's what we're going to do with this tank. People ask me all the time what my favorite nano tank is, and I say if you're going to do a 5-gallon anyway, the Spec 5-gallon is a pretty decent contender for a lot of different reasons. One thing is that it's got a really long, narrow layout that's not very wide, but it does give you a little bit more aquascaping potential than maybe a small square. The other thing is the light that comes on this is very, very good. This tank and this light are the exact same ones that are in my video called Mini Gardens. And if you want to look at that tank today, here it is. The light grows the plants very, very well. I've had a lot of good luck with it. I had really lush Monte Carlo in there before I pulled a bunch of it out. And the dwarf Sagittarius, which is what is all over the all those long grassy looking things. It's not jungle val or anything. It's actually dwarf sag. And it is going all over the place in there. That started off as just a little tiny plant inside a cup, and it kind of grew out of there and then spread throughout the whole tank. And that's blocking out a whole bunch of light, which is kind of keeping the Monte Carlo from really taking over and getting very bushy again. But since I already know that Monte Carlo is going to do really well, that's going to be a key ingredient in this one. And I'm going to pull a bunch of Monte Carlo out of the 20-gallon Into the Woods tank, which is just absolutely overgrown right now. Now for the substrate and the hardscape on this, I actually made a little trip to my local store, which by that I mean my garage of leftovers. So let's take a look at that. Now to get this aquascape started, we're going to need some hardscape. I've got a bunch of dragonstone in here. We'll probably use some of this, some small pieces in here, and gonna need some substrate. I think that will do nicely. I've got this one piece of dragonstone that doesn't really match my other pieces too well. See, it's a little bit more brown and stuff. And I'm wondering if I can break this apart and make a bunch of really interesting pieces out of it. So let's try that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use a regular hammer and a chisel. This chisel isn't necessarily made for this rock or anything, but maybe it'll work really well. And I'm just going to go right through the middle and see. Oh, breaks apart actually really easily. Look at all these mud deposits in here. That's what makes all this pits in the dragonstone. It's always like dirt deposits and mud deposits that get washed away over time. Oh, and just a small whack after that, and you can see that this breaks apart and looks really nice and dramatic. So now I've got a bunch of small pieces instead of one big unwieldy piece. Now I think the next thing I need to do is rinse this off real good, get this under some water, wash this residue and mud off, and see what we got left. Rinsing off this stuff is no big deal. Basically, you're just kind of getting the mud deposits and stuff that are built up in here, just kind of rinse them out, and you'll end up with a really cool piece of rock. I was really surprised at how quickly and easily this thing broke apart, but man, actually it looked really, really neat. You can hit it with a jet. This makes the process a little bit faster. You can see a ton of stuff's coming out of there. You don't want that in your tank if you can help it. The first couple of times I used dragonstone, I didn't rinse it out at all. I didn't really know what I was doing with it. And this will all come out in your tank if you don't rinse it out. And it doesn't look quite as good. So I definitely recommend not skipping this step. Even if you're not breaking your dragonstone apart, you're going to probably want to rinse it out real good. Now for this one, I'm going to pretty much skip right through the unboxing of the tank. I usually, like when I open one of these, I'll do kind of an unboxing and explain all the components. But I do have a Fluval Spec playlist where I've set up a whole lot of these tanks. So if you want more information about how to put this together or something like that, be sure to take a look at that playlist. I'll put a link for that at the end of this video. So I think it's time we give this the mega treatment. What do you say? Mega! Oh, wow. Boy, that was fast. A lot faster than usual. And here we have the Fluval Spec 5-gallon. I believe the way he wants to do this, he wants to have the filter part facing this way. So we're going to go ahead and orient it that way. And another thing I think I'd like to do on this is I'm going to go ahead and throw a black background. I think that might even help you guys see this as I'm putting it together. So I'm going to go ahead and get that going, and then we'll get started with the scape. Alright, we're going to start with the substrate. I'm using Aquasolium from Chem. It is a soil-based substrate. As you've no doubt heard me say before, I don't generally rinse the soil substrates. Just going to do this whole bag. I'm using a 2 kilogram bag. That's 4.4 pounds. And I'm just going to use this brush. You might notice too, I'm not using a sub layer. I'm just doing all Aquasolium. I think that will work just fine. It's such a small bag, it kind of fit this perfectly, so I decided just to use the Aquasolium. I think that'll work really well. Now we'll play around with the hardscape a little bit. Find sort of a nice, attractive way to display it. This Aquasolium is really tricky, just like a lot of the soil substrates. It rolls around really easily and can be hard to plant in because the plants will just come right back out of it. Putting rocks and stuff in is kind of tricky too. Nothing wants to really stay. When I'm placing my hardscape, I like to keep the rocks away from the glass or anywhere you might need to clean, so I'm going to pull them back off the glass a little bit. You don't really want an even number of large rocks. Now this isn't a very large rock, but I'm hoping this will sort of break it up. You want to go for kind of an odd number when you can. Your eye just likes that a little bit better. I've got all kinds of these small rocks, which will be nice in the beginning, but in the end they will disappear under the Monte Carlo. That'll grow right up over that. But in the beginning they might kind of help add some interest to some of these small spaces here. Alright, so I've been playing with these rocks to kind of get them to do what I want. One thing that's kind of fun to do with the pointier dragonstone rocks and things like that is to see if you can kind of get them pointing at each other. You can actually kind of force an angle just by kind of manipulating them a little bit. And it's important to kind of turn these around just a little bit just to see where the really interesting angles are, where the interesting sides are in these things. With rocks and stuff, you tend to get some facings that are more interesting than the others, and it's important that you make sure to accentuate the better parts. I've taken away a lot of these smaller rocks and stuff too for now. I'm going to wait till I plant and probably use them to help me get plants in there. I think what I'm going to do before I actually start to add the plants, I'm going to throw a little bit of water in here and get this a little bit moist. That might help the plants stay in a little bit better. Alright, so let's get some water going. Alright, so I'm just adding some water right here to this back chamber, which of course is going to shoot at the tiny hole in the side there. And you just want to be careful that that little stream of water down at the bottom doesn't cause too many problems. You can always throw a rock in there or something too to kind of break up the water as it's coming through. Keep it from knocking your substrate around too much. There we go. I'm just going to add a little bit of water just to kind of get things going. It'll get nice and wet down there so I can plant some plants. Alright, so I'm going to start with the Monte Carlo. I've got quite a lot of it. I want to cover as much of the ground as I can. Because I trimmed it from an existing plant, I've got a ton of like little small pieces, so this may take a little while. And I'm not sure exactly how much you can see, so we'll probably do a super cut here in just a second to me finishing this. But as you can see, I'm just kind of putting it at various places. I want to put in all these nooks and crannies. The goal is for this to grow all through here, and these will kind of look like islands in the middle of sort of this green, lush carpet. But planting this is going to take me a while, so let's cut to the future. What do you say? Something you can do if you've got a bunch of trimmed Monte Carlo is kind of get it together into a nice little clump. And what I try to do is I just try to get them all pointed the same direction. See, a lot of times when you trim, it'll be going this way and that way. And what I want to do is I just want all the leaves to kind of be facing the same direction. And I'm going to make a nice little clump. Not too big, but not small. I've found that Monte Carlo, it can grow really well out of these little clumps. And they don't have to be very large or anything like that. But you just get a nice little selection of it and put it in there together like that. Hopefully it'll grow really well. You can also plant all these little sprigs individually, but it can be very, very time consuming. I don't know if I've got the energy for that. So I'm trying to make some little clumps here and there. So in a nice clump like this, you can kind of stick in there. I find that adding water to this has really made planting in here a little bit easier. Planting with this dry can be quite painful to do. It's just things do not want to stay in the substrate. It's so loose in here. But the water's helped a lot. The other plant I've got here is called a hydrocotyl. I believe it's called hydrocotyl. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can post the scientific name, but it's a real interesting viney little plant. It's got cute little leaves on it, and it makes for a nice extra texture in the tank. So what we got here is a scape that's pretty low. And what we're going to do is just add a little bit of height to it with this anubis. Now, of course, what we'll probably do, I like to bury the roots. But I'm going to leave the rhizome, this part right here. We're going to leave that actually out on top. So we're going to just sort of get it situated. It's a nice piece too. I'll pull that out of one of my tanks. It's going to end up living in the back corner here. That actually looks really, really nice, and I'm going to add another one. I'm going to stack it up right behind the first one there, and just step back and take a look. So what I'm going to do, instead of permanently putting the anubis in, I've got them. I know exactly where I want to put them. So what I'm going to do now is kind of touch up around the rocks. The big rocks with just some little tiny small ones. And all these are doing is sort of anchoring some plants that started to float, and they kind of fill in these little spaces. That way we can sort of cheat and anchor these, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go have dinner. And I'm going to leave this tank overnight just like it is. The water just kind of barely covering these things. I'll take it to work, fill it up, and then I'm going to throw in the anubis there. right, so here it is all set up. Luckily, my cubicle is just a little ways away over there. So we'll be able to come back and check on this in a few weeks and really see how it's growing in. And that's all we got today. Till next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.